tomorrow. The CCMA, however, said it was optimistic about the mediation process. The University of Johannesburg says government's National Students Financial Aid Scheme must hand over 113 million rand as a matter of urgency to fund more than 2,000 students in need of financial aid. Student movement SASCO protested at the Kingsway campus yesterday, saying hundreds of students will not be able to register if funding is not made available. A total of 2,170 students have qualified for funding. And the UN Security Council has passed a resolution calling on member states to prevent terrorists from benefiting directly or indirectly from ransom payments. The United Kingdom, which authored the text, estimates that Al-Qaeda-affiliated groups have over the last 3.5 years collected more than R1 billion in foreign ransom payments, an average of 25 million rand per foreign hostage. Efforts to secure the release of kidnapped South African teacher Pierre Corky in Yemen continues. Well, an interesting story now. A senior Cape Town journalist has been suspended for allegedly applying to be on the Democratic Alliance's list of parliamentary candidates for the general elections later this year. Business Reports Cape Town Bureau Chief Donald Presley was suspended by the independent group late last week. According to a statement, Presley sought elected political office with a political party by applying to the party's electoral college to be on its list of candidates for parliament during the 2014 general elections. This, according to this very statement, he did without informing his editor and while continuing to write news as well as opinion and analysis on the said political party without declaring his political intentions to the readers of this particular newspaper. Now, in our Cape Town studio, we have Donald Presley's lawyer, Michael Bagram. Good morning, Michael.
Morning, how are you?
Michael, I believe Mazel Tov is in order for you yourself. You have made it onto the DA's list as the number 18. That's a shoo-in for Parliament, really?
Well, I'm trying, I'm hoping, and I'm holding thumbs. And yes, I have resigned from my position at the Cape Chamber of Commerce, pending that election.
I'll come back to you now, Michael. I just want to introduce our other guest here. We have Marinette Jordan with us here in Johannesburg, a journalism ethics expert from the University of Pretoria. Marinette, thank you for joining us as well.
Good morning, Eben.
Let me go back to Cape Town. Before we get into the ethical arguments around this case, and everyone has an opinion on this, I want to talk to you, Michael, about the official position of your client and then the charges against him. Can you just clear that all up for us, please?
Yeah, well, we don't know the charges as yet. He's been suspended for joining a political party and making his name available for the list. This was before the list became knowledge. And of course, as everyone now knows, he's not on the list. So we need to actually step a bit back and say, what is it that he's done wrong? And if he's done anything wrong at all, and what sort of punishment could one expect if there is anything wrong? You need to look at the law first. The labour law is quite clear on this, and the CCMA, which is the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration, have a checklist as to what you can do and what you can't do before we get to the ethics of the issue. The first thing is there a rule that you can't join a political party and make your name available? We don't know of any rule, but let's say there is a rule. Then the next thing is that rule knowledgeable? Do people know about the rule? He doesn't know about any rule. And the third thing is that rule uniformly implemented? In other words, is everyone else who belongs to political parties treated the same way? And then finally, what sort of punishment would one expect if you transgress the rule? Would you expect to be suspended, or would you expect to get a warning and say, don't do that? And that's the checklist that one needs to go through in law before one can actually condemn someone at a disciplinary hearing. As we know, he put his name forward, but it didn't actually get onto the list. Has he done anything wrong? Are other journalists members of political parties? Are they obliged to tell their employer that they're members of political parties? Are they obliged to tell even where they voted and what their feelings are? I don't think anyone in South Africa today can say, well, look, I'm completely apolitical. I have no thoughts on any issues at all. And so we've got all those debates mulling around. I'm not sure the way the case is going to go. We haven't had any charges. And I certainly don't know what Donald Presley's opinion is at this stage.
Yeah.
I will have to consult with him in due course. What is important is the loyalty, the ability for him to stand outside his own personal thoughts. And then, of course, if in fact an employer says, I don't agree with you because I'm worried about your trustworthiness, what would you do if you were a used car salesman, for instance, and you found out that your used car salesman, your best salesman, applied for a job at the used car lot across the road? Would you dismiss him because you don't think he's loyal or he's not trustworthy?
Yeah.
And the law tells us, no, you can't do that. He's entitled to apply. You wouldn't find someone guilty of attempted murder if they tried to shoot an aeroplane with a pellet gun.
Yes, in
so
law,
you need to take all those.
In law, I think you have an argument in law, but in journalism, there's the big factor is ethics, and that's really what drives journalists, not just in our country but around the world. And this is where I want to bring Marinette in and ask her about this specific case. If you have put your name forward for you didn't make the list in this case, you've put your name forward to be nominated for some sort of role in Parliament. As a journalist and as a senior journalist at any newspaper, what do you think of that?
You know, Eben, I think the important thing is to remember that one of the key principles of journalism is your first obligation is to the citizen, and you should be independent of those you cover. And even the appearance of being loyal to somebody else than your citizens, or even the appearance of being loyal to a political party, which would mean that your credibility suffers in the eyes of the public, which you should be loyal to, I think makes an argument for you not to be a real ethical journalist anymore. I find it interesting that Michael compares the journalist to a used car salesman, which I think you can always use an argument for saying that a journalist shouldn't have any more rights than another citizen, which is true. A journalist doesn't have any more rights than a citizen, but there's a certain way that you should look at journalism in terms of the responsibilities that a journalist has.
Yeah.
And I think that is why we have ethical codes. That's why the press code in journalism starts with the purpose of journalism, or the press exists to serve society. And if you serve society and your loyalty is towards citizens, your credibility suffers if you, even the appearance you have is to serve somebody else.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the regulations or the statutes of political parties, they say that you could be brought up for misconduct if you seem to be disloyal to the political party,
Yeah.
if you seem to be doing something that brings the political party into disrepute. So where does your loyalty lie now?
Yeah.
Are you doing something that makes the political party look bad if you publish something that doesn't seem to support the political party, if you're a journalist? So it seems to be a balance that you're always going to walk a tightrope. And I'm not talking about voting, I'm talking about putting your name forward for candidacy, I'm talking about being a card-carrying member and supporting the statutes and the regulations of a political party.
Michael, you talk about good citizenry, and a good citizen must be politically active and involved in South Africa. I wanted to ask you about your client, and we understand that he's politically involved, but as a journalist then from there, was your client writing opinion pieces on this said political party during his tenure and while he was actively involved in the work of this political party? And then, in your opinion, can this person then be unbiased?
Well, okay, yes, there's a group of questions and I'm happy to answer them. And yes, if you take the ideal world, you would have a journalist that has no opinions, personal opinions. If you take the ideal world, you'll have a journalist that is not a card-carrying member of, say, the Vegetarian Society. And so you couldn't ask me to write an article on the sale of meat. I must tell you, and I think every single journalist in this country, and I challenge anyone to come forward and tell me that they don't have opinions. I challenge every journalist to come forward and tell me that they are willing to open up their personal life and tell me what their opinions are before I employ them. What you're really doing is you're saying, from an ethical point of view, that no journalist can be a member of a political party. Then we need to have rules like that. We need to say, we can investigate, we can open up every political party's books. Let's go to the ANC, see how many card-carrying members there are and how many journalists are card-carrying members of the ANC. I think what you're really advocating then is a big brother society, which we can't have. One would expect a professional like a journalist, and that's why I compared it to used car salesman, because I wanted the stark reality to come out. A professional like a journalist would actually divorce themselves from that party and say, listen, I'm a member of that party, I'm a member of the ANC, I write stories about the ANC, but this is my newspaper, this is my professional life, this is my opinion. Like a lawyer. A lawyer might not be happy with something that a client did, but you need to move above that, float above it and have a better view of it. And I expect journalists to be professionals. I'm hoping they are. The bottom line is, in this particular case, if you start analyzing what this particular individual did, and you have a look at some of the stories about, for instance, the DA, a lot of them were negative stories about the DA. In fact, if you analyze it, and I've been trying to do that now over the last week, most of it has been negative and not positive. So here we've got a professional who moved above what his personal viewpoint is and said, I'm a journalist, I'm going to do the right thing. I take issue with the professor. The reality is we've all got opinions, every single one of us. You and I, Eben, we've got opinions. But in our professional lives, we stand back and we say, let's report, let's do what is necessary. If I'm writing opinion pieces, let's do it as ethically as we can.
But Michael, in the end, journalists are often paid for their opinions as professionals, and they sort of lead public opinion in a way. And Marinette, maybe you can clear that up. There is a fine line that you have to tread, isn't there?
I think the main point that I want to make, and I don't want to get into the specific case too much, is the need for transparency. That's one of the main ethical guidelines, even that we teach our students, and that is universally accepted, is you strive for the truth and you are transparent. And that is and I understand that people declare their allegiance, if I can put it like that, but it should be declared the moment you align yourself with a certain organization, and that, be it whether you're a vegan and you're writing about meat, or whether you're a member of the DA and you're writing a story about the DA, or whether you're taken on a trip by BMW to the BMW factory and you're writing a story about them. I think the main fact is that is where your credibility comes from, is that you are transparent about your methods and that people can question you, especially in the age where we live today, where people can do what they call post-fact checking, because everybody can find it out.
Correct.
Everybody can find out now. They can Google and find out what you do and where the information comes from and where you are a member of and what you do in your personal life. So it's easy for people to check up on you. You basically, you cannot lie to them.
Michael, in this case, you are probably the poster boy. You have resigned, you say now, as the Human Resource Portfolio Chairman of the Cape Chamber of Commerce, simply because you are now on the candidates list. So that almost makes you the perfect case study of what one should do in this case. And
yes, well, that's exactly what I'm getting at. That's why I let you know about this, because
but your client didn't inform his editor.
Candidate.
Your client never informed his editor, though.
But he wasn't on the list.
Nobody applied for the list. There's not real difference, is there?
Correct. No, there's a massive difference, and I'll explain to you why. I remained a confidential candidate. I didn't go to the Chamber of Commerce and said, I've applied. I remained confidential. I stood above that and I did my job at the Chamber of Commerce. The minute my name appeared on the list, I then went and resigned. It's the same as the lady who with the NPA, the prosecuting authority. She doesn't say that I need to resign until her name appears on the list. Then she resigns. What we're doing is, let's say, for instance, I've got some sort of secret in my life, and I now need to tell my employer. Now, that's madness. I mean, do I have to come forward and say I'm homosexual, for instance, and I'm writing stories on homosexuality? I don't think that's necessary. I don't think it's necessary for that journalist to come forward and open up his entire life and say, here I am. I'm a vegetarian, homosexual, I've got ingrowing toenails, and I need to let you know that because it's going to influence how I'm going to write.
But Michael, this journalist, in this case in point, is also the chairman of the Cape Town Press Club, and surely that has some sort of other influences and other areas of influence. And I recall some of the ministers refused to appear before the Cape Town Press Club because they say that it was DA or accused it of being aligned towards the DA. Surely that's where the grey area is just simply too big.
Sure it is. And look, we need to have rules in. You need to say to every journalist, I need you to tell me up front whether you're a member of a political party. If you are, I can't employ you. Or if you suddenly become a member, I need you to resign. We need rules and regulations like that if you're going to hold someone accountable to it. Most journalists today rise above that sort of thing and say, yes, I know that I have a particular issue. I'm not going to be a journalist anymore because of this issue, otherwise I'm going to tell my employer. I wanted to add one thing. When in fact the employer asked this particular journalist, are you a member of a political party? And he answered yes. He didn't get suspended immediately. He carried on writing. So they didn't seem to think at that point it was an issue. It became an issue afterwards, and I'm not sure why.
Michael, thank you. Before I let you go, I wanted to ask you about this big announcement that your political party will be doing at 10 o'clock this morning. Are we seeing some sort of merger? Is there something in the offing that you can maybe give us a little inside track on?
Unfortunately, I'm not on the inside. I wish I was, and I'd love to be able to be the one to jump the gun. But no, I'm on the list, but I'm not sharing any information because I don't know of any information. I, like you, will be watching you carefully at 10 o'clock to see what actually takes place. And I'm sure you will let us know.
Fantastic, Michael. Thank you for that contribution. Very interesting take on this matter. And Marinette, you've got the last word just to tell us an interesting spin that Michael puts on it. Where does the role between a citizen and journalist begin and end? And also, which comes first?
I think, as I said before, and I don't want to comment again on the specific case, a journalist doesn't have any more rights than a citizen, but maybe a little bit more responsibility. And I think what I want to say again is the issue of transparency, and that is where your credibility comes from. And that a journalist, and what is necessary to remember is that a lot of ethical codes, if you look at the press code, if you look at the Mail and Guardian's ethical code, they do say something about political allegiance. Political allegiance, business allegiance, they do mention that. So it's not as if journalists are not aware of being aware of this issue. So if you are transparent about that, maybe you can go into a conversation with your employers about this.
Marinette, thank you very much for joining us today. That is the journalism ethics expert from the University of Pretoria, Marinette Jordan, giving us the ethical viewpoint. And, you know, my little 5 cents, I'm not an official member of any political party, simply because I believe that I have to try and be as independent as possible. But That's where we're going to have to leave it this morning. Let's now just recap our top story running on SABC News at the moment. The Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration remains positive about the process in place to resolve the strike in the platinum sector. The talks between affected parties are expected to continue at the CCMA until much later today. Workers' Union AMCU has been on strike since last Thursday, demanding an entry-level monthly wage of 12,500 rand.
These AMCU-affiliated workers remain resolute that they will not back down on their demands. They picketed outside the Kuseleka shaft, wielding sticks and knobkerries, but they maintain they are not a threat to non-striking workers.
Those who want to come to work, they are free to come to work. No intimidation will take place or any violence will take place, because we are here as leaders so that we can prevent such things.
At Lonmin Marikana, mine workers marched to the copy of the 2012 bloody massacre. They were remembering those who had fallen in the fight for a living wage. Then they converged at the Wonderkop Stadium, awaiting feedback on talks between their leaders and mine bosses.
We are not attacking anyone. We remain peaceful. And we have surprised everyone because people thought that we would be violent. But we remain resolute. Till today, we still demand 12,500.
Workers are expected to meet again at their respective shafts, where their leaders will address them on the ongoing talks. Police continue to monitor the situation.
Well, let's take a look at what you are saying and thinking on social media. And I can tell you, there's been a lot of talk around quite a few things. Election candidate list, there's the proposed merger some people are talking about. Proposed merger. Well, we don't have Bright Eye at the moment, so we can't show you the tweets. But I can tell you that a lot of people are talking about the candidate list, and then a proposed merger today at 10 o'clock between what they say, Achang SA and the DA. We will keep you informed if that is what happens, and if it happens, you'll be able to see it right here on this very show. Of course, our website is sabcnews.co.za/news, and if you want to contact us, it's at SABC Newsroom. That's on Twitter. Unfortunately, our Bright Eye's not working this morning, so we can't give you that, but we move on. Threats of mass action threaten the registration processes at South Africa's tertiary institutions. Details after a short break. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
I vote because I still believe.
I'm gonna vote because there's so much beauty in this place. We need to protect it.
Because together we can achieve great things.
I'm voting for the future of my kids.
And for my grandchildren.
I'm voting because I want to show the world how awesome we are.
We've got a beautiful democracy and I'm gonna support it.
Ek stem want ek is lief vir die land. My land.
IEC. I vote South Africa.
SABC News plays a critical role in providing unbiased and reliable news. We have a well-established reputation of uncovering, reporting and delivering news. A significant growth in popularity of our news demonstrates the demand for our news content. We continue to provide unrivaled coverage of vital events in and out of the country. Wherever the news is happening, we'll be there to bring them to you at the right time. No one has the news covered like SABC News. We lead and they follow. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
Welcome back. Your Newsroom on SABC News. The University of Johannesburg says government's National Students Financial Aid Scheme must hand over 113 million rand as a matter of urgency to fund more than 2,200 students in need of financial aid. Meanwhile, student movement SASCO has vowed to disrupt registration processes at 10 higher education institutions this week. Yesterday, SASCO protested at the Kingsway campus, saying hundreds of students will not be able to register if funding is not made available. Disruptions are mainly to highlight the problems around the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. In Johannesburg studio here with us, we have SASCO's president, Ntutuko Makomboti. Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
This issue, surely we've known a lot earlier that there were issues with financial aid. Why are we disrupting the processes now at the beginning of the year when we all have to get into gear?
Well, as SASCO, we raised these matters last year with universities, and we even issued a warning to universities not to increase fees, because this also depletes our resources that we have for NSFAS, because fewer students end up being covered. But universities continued to increase fees unjustifiably, and this has exacerbated the challenge that we are facing. So the only course of action that we have as students in order to ensure that poor working class students are able to enter is to go on the street and ensure that when registration does resume, all students are given equal opportunity to register.
Now, your protest seems justified, but are you not targeting the wrong areas, and in doing so making the wrong people suffer, those people that are not getting aid, that have hard-working parents and that are out there at universities to register and really make it count in their lives?
Well, we do believe that the children of workers and the children of the unemployed are also children of people who are working hard, and that it is very important for our development as a country to uplift the poor. You know, if you teach a student coming from a poor society, you are able to assist that family in the long term, and it's part of the developmental imperatives of the country. So we as students, we have a number of students who are unaffected, who are not even NSFAS beneficiaries, also in solidarity with us, saying we need to ensure that all students are able to register, especially because these are students who have been accepted into universities and therefore are academically deserving.
What about the thrashing of campuses, the violence we see at some campuses around the country, and the general lawlessness and the standoffs with the police that are happening? What is your reaction to that?
Well, we've instructed our members to exercise high levels of discipline, because we don't want to defocus this noble action and then actually have something else. But we also have pleaded with the police and university management to exercise tolerance and restraint, because in most cases we find that students who are protesting peacefully are provoked by university managers and police. So we're calling for restraint, we're calling for tolerance during this period, and for us to be allowed to exercise our democratic right to protest.
But are you protesting at the right place? Because it's not the universities that are not giving the money. The universities need money to operate themselves. Surely you can't target your frustration at the universities and the tertiary institutions when they themselves are victims in this matter.
Well, to the contrary, it is actually universities that are excluding students. They introduce exclusionary measures such as registrations, which is upfront payments, which makes sure that many students don't enter the system. Universities also have a responsibility. I mean, we have made it clear today that to universities that we are concerned that they want to hijack our program, our protest, as if we are mobilizing funds for them. I mean, the University of Johannesburg, for example, we believe has got billions in reserves that it could use also to play ball. Why is it just calling on government to contribute? Why are they not also looking at how they tap into their own resources to ensure that universities also have a responsibility towards ensuring that students they succeed.
So if this is your argument, then why not start a more constructive process in due time and due course, where you involve all these role players and you find a way forward, instead of thrashing campuses and putting really all the students' education at risk?
No, we are not thrashing campuses, and that's not our intention. If you look at the majority of vandalism that happens during protest action, it's done by the police. They are the ones
the
who shoot
police?
Yes, they are the ones who shoot at students. They break windows in our campuses and so on, and then students start to retaliate. So that's been actually the experience on the ground. But we have been in constant engagements with the Department of Higher Education. We have been in engagements with NSFAS. We have been in engagements with universities. But our experience with universities is that they always want to shift the blame towards government and don't want to identify a role that they also could play in ensuring that we have students from working class and poor backgrounds actually have access to education. So we have been having engagements, and the reason why we have taken a decision to go on strike is because those engagements have not yielded results.
Students going on strike in the 21st century sounds a little bit of a misnomer to me. It's like holding a nation ransom.
No, protest action is part of democratic participation. This country has a history of struggle. And as students, we believe that all that we have been able to achieve, in fact, on transformation of higher education, we have been able to do so because of our mass actions. The reason why government has actually increased funding for NSFAS over the past years is because of the mass actions that SASCO has been engaged in particular. And we believe that we will continue to do so. And we are open to engagements. We've been in engagements. We don't fear engagements. As a student organization, we are very confident that sitting in the table with government and all other stakeholders, we are able to actually raise the challenges and also provide solutions for this crisis that we are facing.
The entire country is looking at you and your organization, and we're hoping that we can find a solution so that the students can get back to class, because in the end, that is what South Africa needs. We don't need protest, mass action at our universities that really disrupt the processes. Let's find ways to talk this out and find a way that everyone benefits, because education is the secret or the key to South Africa's success over the next 100 years. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. We hope to find a solution this week, and we are confident that we'll do so.
Thank you very much. That is the president of student body SASCO, Ntuko Makumboti, on the latest round of talks that's going on between the universities, government, and the students' organization in South Africa. Let's hope that they can find some middle ground. After the break, we speak to Mandla Maseko, the first black African to go into outer space. This is Newsroom on SABC News.
Two explosions, at least one caused by a suicide bomber, rocked Iran's embassy in Lebanon this morning, killing at least 23 people, including an Iranian cultural attaché.
South Africa will meet the 2015 deadline to move to digital terrestrial television. That's the assurance from the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Communications, Eric Kolwane.
The minister is busy making submission to Cabinet, and then Cabinet will be seized with the matter. I hope that it will be resolved immediately.
That's Primetime News, daily at 6 p.m. on SABC News.
Good day and welcome to yet another evening of Afro Showbiz News. Award-winning French film Rust and Bone has opened in South Africa. The film was nominated for this year's Golden Globe Awards in the United States of America. The heart of Mali fashion is to use hand-dyed fabrics. The method of West African nation is one of the most rare ways of coloring the country's Bazin fabric. The film The President, How Do I Know It's Time to Go, has caused controversy in Cameroon. It is based on the true story of the country's president.
That's Afro Showbiz News, Saturdays 7:30 p.m. on SABC News.
This is Newsroom. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look at the stories in the headlines. Talks between the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, AMCU, and platinum producers enter a third day today. The negotiations are being facilitated by the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation and Arbitration. Talks are scheduled to end tomorrow. The CCMA, however, said it was optimistic about the mediation process. The University of Johannesburg says government's National Students Financial Aid Scheme must hand over 113 million rand as a matter of urgency to fund more than 2,000 students in need of financial aid. Student movement SASCO protested at the Kingsway campus yesterday, saying hundreds of students will not be able to register if funding is not made available. A total of 2,170 students have qualified for funding. And the UN Security Council has passed a resolution calling on member states to prevent terrorists from benefiting directly or indirectly from ransom payments. The United Kingdom, which authored the text, estimates that Al-Qaeda affiliated groups have over the last 3.5 years collected more than R1 billion in foreign national ransom payments, an average of 25 million rand per foreign hostage. Efforts to secure the release of kidnapped South African teacher Pierre Corky in the Yemen continues. Eight independent candidates from Northwest Tlokwe municipality have alleged in court papers that hundreds, if not thousands, of voters in the by-elections in the area were not legitimate. The Electoral Court in Bloemfontein is due next month to hear a court application by these independent candidates to have the election results set aside and an independent investigation to be conducted. If the court case is successful and the allegations can be proven, a new by-election will be held. The ANC, meanwhile, appointed Khotso Khumalo as the new mayor of Tlokwe yesterday. Now, Tsolofelo Matiberi is in our newsroom studio in Mahikeng to talk to us. Good morning, Tsolofelo. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Eben.
Tsolofelo, tell us, when did the allegations of vote rigging, when did it surface?
Allegations of vote rigging actually surfaced immediately after the Tlokwe by-elections in December. Even after those by-elections, there you could even hear from the spokesperson or many of the independent candidates talking about, how they believe that there was rigging, but they said that they were planning. They actually spoke to us to say that they are planning to lodge a case with the Electoral Court, saying that they are still gathering all the necessary facts for that case to can be lodged. So I think what has happened now is, as a result of what they have always been saying, even in the elections, in the by-elections that were held in the 4 wards and in the other 3 wards, and then subsequently the by-elections that were held at the last 6 wards on December the 11th.
This case seems to be heading for the Electoral Court now. Is there any other evidence or any new evidence? Or really, what is the evidence of this type of vote rigging that's being put forward?
There is talk about, busing in of people from areas that are not or were not part of the electoral process. There's talk about busing in of people even from far off as the Free State province to come into the Northwest to be part of the by-elections. And those are just, that's what the independent candidates are saying. And for now, it still has to be proven by the Electoral Court that indeed happened. There's a number of 2,500 names that have been put forward according to the reports that we have seen around, and according to our interactions with the independent candidates, that these are the numbers of people that they believe were bussed in, either from neighboring provinces, some from wards that were not participating in the by-elections. But those are the people that then ended up participating in the by-elections this time around. So that still needs to be proven by the court, actually. But they say that they believe that they have a strong case, and they believe that they've done the necessary groundwork to prove their case in front of the Electoral Court. That's why they took so long to go to the Electoral Court and to lodge the case.
Tsolofelo, now Khotso Khumalo is the new mayor. How will this affect his position?
When talking to the SABC yesterday, Mr. Khumalo said his concern was service delivery and trying to ensure that, normality returns to this embattled municipality, because we know that Tlokwe has been in the news from last year already, or year before last already, where there was, the voting by ANC members with the DA to unseat an ANC mayor, Mapete, replacing him with a DA mayor. And then afterwards, there was a motion of no confidence that was put in place, and Annette Combrink was removed, and then she was then voted in again. So it's been, sort of a match between the DA on the one hand and the ANC. The ANC always saying that, they won this area legitimately through the ballot, and the people have spoken about the government that they wanted, which was an ANC government, and they've been accusing the DA all along of trying to hijack the wins or the gains that were made by the ANC. So now Mr. Khumalo is saying that my interest here is to come in, bring stability, ensure that there's service delivery. But the political party that have put me in this position will then have to deal with the issues that have now resurfaced or that have surfaced of the allegations of vote rigging and all of that. So he says he believes the ANC, which is the party that has put him in this position, is better placed to deal with those. His concern is to ensure that there's normality, there's a service delivery.
Thank you very much, solo fellow Mati Bedi there from King, giving us a little insight into what's become a little bit of a political hot potato, an issue that doesn't seem to want to go away at the Tlokwe municipality in that area. Now, we close today with 25-year-old Mandla Maseku, will become the first black African to make a trip to outer space after he won a competition organized by Axe Deodorant. Maseku, who grew up in Mabopane in Pretoria, will experience zero gravity next year when his spaceship will launch for a half-an-hour flight. He beat 1 million other contestants from around the world to succeed in various grueling tasks that tested him physically, mentally and emotionally. One of the tests involved skydiving from 10,000 feet. Now, Mandla, if you can come and join me, he follows in the footsteps of Mark Shuttleworth, who was the first South African in space back in the year 2002. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I love the outfit.
Thank you for having me. And yeah, I'm glad you love the outfit.
Mandla, tell us about this process you've gone through. You must be very excited. Firstly, tell us how you feel, and then how the sort of process that you went through.
It hasn't really sunk in yet. I'm happy, I'm excited, all that and more. And the process for me to get here, I had to enter a competition via the radio station, whereby I had to send a picture of myself jumping from anywhere. So I was jumping from top of the wall, and my friend captured me while I was in mid-air. And then I emailed it to that radio station. They called me back, and I made it to the top 30. That was going to the local space camp that was held in Free State, Paris.
Now, once you went to the space camp, what happened at the space camp? Was it grueling stuff? Yeah. 10,000 feet you had to jump. You're not afraid of heights, I suppose?
My man, it was grueling. We had to do like 3 challenges, of which 2 of them were compulsory. Yeah. As you mentioned, 10,000 feet skydiving above Earth. Yeah. And the challenge there was to drop 2 sandbags that was on the target that was laid on the ground. And then the other one was the vomit comet.
Vomit comet?
Yes, sir. The vomit comet is a room whereby you stand up against the wall, it starts spinning, and at some point the floor disappears. Yes. Now, there's nothing keeping you on air except the G-force. Yes. Now, the challenge there was to pick up 5 flags beneath your feet and then put them above your head. And we were narrowed down to 6. Then from 6, we had to do what we call the plane stunt. You get in a plane, it goes up, it does all these stunts with you. Yeah. And then, I made it to the top 3. That was going to represent South Africa at the Global Space Camp in USA.
Now, how did this experience change your perception of space and space travel?
You get to see movies like Apollo 13, the Armageddon, the latest one, which is Gravity. And you get to see them and you say, this is just a movie. And then for us, you get to see it on a movie. Yeah. And once I've, like me, now that I've accomplished it, it has taken a 360 degrees turn, now I'm actually feeling the space in my grasp. So yeah.
Tell me about your family and how they reacted to the news of you going to space, and your friends and your community.
In Zulu they say, "Uyovakashela uNkulunkulu," meaning that you're going to see God or something. I'll be like, "No, I'm going to space, out of space." And you know, those are my grandparents, by the way. So they, in their mind, they think I'm going to see God, and no, it's just here on the atmosphere. So my family is happy. The whole entire family, the Masekos, are very happy.
And how does it feel to be called an astronaut? And on top of that, the first black African in space.
Yes. Wow. It's they found a new word for me. I don't know if it's new or it's always been there. It's the Afronaut.
The Afronaut.
So yeah, it's overwhelming. You know, once you get to be associated with astronauts, nothing beats astronauts.
Yeah.
So,
especially with the girls, huh?
No comment. No comment.
No comment. You say, you are guilty as charged then. You're guilty as charged. You do not want to give evidence against yourself, I would think. But I want to move forward to the future. Now that you've had this experience and you're going to have this wonderful experience, I think once in a generation, never mind lifetime. Tell me about what you want to do after this. Are you planning to go work at NASA? Are you planning to go and study? Is there a South African space agency or project that you want to work on?
All right. This AASA, which is the Ex-Apollo Space Academy, has done a lot for me. And in association with the Space Expedition Corporation, they are sort of a company that wants to make going to space a commercial flight. And to answer your question, yes, I would love to pursue this as a career, of which why I'm planning to register aeronautical engineering and qualify as a mission specialist. And hopefully next time go on a mission to the moon to put the South African flag there under the SXC. There's NASA and there's SXC, so under the SXC.
That is absolutely fantastic. Now, you've got another year and a bit before you go there. Tell me, what are you going to do for the next year? What kind of preparations you're doing? What kind of training, you're going to be doing?
At the moment, I'm studying. I'm finishing my civil engineering. And hopefully when I'm done, then I'm going to register aeronautical engineering. And physically, I'm doing my morning jogs, my afternoon jogs, those push-ups and sit-ups. And before I get to launch for the Lennox Mark II spacecraft in space in the year 2015, I will be faced with 6 to 8 weeks grueling tests, and I'll be fit to go to space after that.
And what's your message then to the youngsters out there looking at you now with big eyes, thinking, "Wow, this guy's going to do something outrageous"? What's your message to them?
You know, a dream is a dream, and it won't come true unless if you believe in it. So I believe that you can get anything you want as long as you put hard work and determination into it. And, you know, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll definitely land amongst the stars.
Fantastic. Well, Mandla Maseko, you are an inspiration to a lot of people, and all the best. I hope that, now that you're an astronaut, that an Afronaut, an Afronaut, that they say amongst the ladies, nothing beats an Afronaut. So we hope, Mandla, that you'd be able to stick to your strict diet and training regime, and nothing will sway your focus during the next year.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for joining us today. That's Mandla Maseko, our very own Afronaut, the first black African man to go into space. That will happen next year. That's what we call it today. Newsroom was broadcast live from our studios in Auckland Park here in Johannesburg. Of course, we are on air live every morning between 9 and 10 a.m. with highlights rebroadcast at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and then again at 5 a.m. the following morning. So you have no excuse not to get the very best in South African news television. This is SABC News. You've been watching Newsroom. We love it in the morning.